We have the tech to get food delivered in 15 minutes, but we all have horror stories about buying tickets. The Game Time app gives fans the advantage. Get amazing tickets in just a few taps. Fees are included, so what you see is what you pay. And the Game Time guarantee means authentic tickets at the best price every time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets to concerts, sports, comedy, and more with Game Time. Download the Game Time app and create an account for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply.
Hey, warmer from the low! Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for Cups to Soups with myself, Greg Oops Peters, and now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We've got an incredible podcast for you. Boy, oh boy, we are seeing a lot of news in college basketball right now. We had a court case that went the NCAA's way on Monday. Are you kidding me? I have to talk about that. Texas Tech just continues to muscle up. We saw a big addition for Texas A&M with getting Jordan Pope and so much more. So here in segment number one, I'm going to get you guys a recap of the news and notes we saw in college basketball on Monday. And then in segment number two, we're going to be joined by one of our good friends, Paul Fritschner. He does such great work with the Rebound Rundown Podcast, and he's based out there in the lovely city of Cincinnati. And we did see that court case that went the NCAA's way be in Ohio. That's very impactful for Cincinnati and Xavier, so we're going to talk about that. We'll talk about if he thinks that all these players are going to get eligibility or not, what the court case means for Xavier and Cincinnati, and so much more. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one or two ways we fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters EM, the name does not matter. So as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. And then from there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. And I do beg of you, I do plead with you, please do send in these Twitter/X questions. Lets me know what you want to hear on this podcast. That way, I can best get you prepared for what I hope to be the greatest college basketball season of all time. And conference previews are going to be continuing on. Hopefully, we'll be able to do the Patriot League here in the next few days. So we've got a lot that is happening on that front, and we've got a ton that is happening with college basketball as well, because my last conference preview, that would be for the Mountain West, I did have Grand Canyon number one, and they muscled up even further. Jaden Henley, he is going to be back for his 5th year. 17.5 points, 5.5 boards, 3 assists per contest last season, and with bringing in the likes of Blake Barkley and company, I really think that Grand Canyon is looking at something. This is going to be a rock-solid roster, and they're also bringing back Mekhi Williams, who last year was able to average for the team 14 points, so they've got their top 2 scorers back. Obviously, the 3-point shooting was what really let them down last year, but F.A. Demariel, he's back after he was able to give the team 8.5 points, 5 boards, a block per contest. This was a team that was a top 30 team in terms of both rebound percentage and points allowed on a per possession basis, and in my opinion, they just got better, and I think that they have a legitimate chance to be an at-large team and make the Mountain West once again a 2-bid league. Omaha Bailu, he was a former top 30 recruit that comes over from Wake Forest. Jaden Zimmerman, double-figure scorer. Dylan Darling, he was the man that hit the shot that sent St. John's to the Sweet 16 last year. This is an absolutely loaded lineup for Grand Canyon. I feel like they're going to be a top 45, top 50 team, and they get a huge addition here. So that was huge for them. This is also huge. How about for Texas Tech? Donovan Atwell, he is back after the Colorado court ruling. He was shooting about 45+% from 3 last year, 13.5 points per game. And you just take a look at the last 30 days that Texas Tech has had, and it's massive. We had question marks about JT Toppin, and we still do, but before you didn't have an insurance policy, they pick up JaMychal Stillwell, guy that was averaging over 7 rebounds per game over at Central Florida. You knew that Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn and Cruz Davis were going to be in the backcourt. Now you're bringing Darian Williams, who was averaging 13+ points per game over at NC State, was really one of the main men that brought them to the Elite 8 last season. Now you bring back Donovan Atwell, one of the best 3-point shooters in all of college basketball. Basala Bayago, hopefully I got that correct, international man of mystery at 6'10". He adds even more depth down low for this team. Heck, now Demarion Dennis, who comes over from Wyoming, he's just nothing more than a reserve for this team, in my opinion. Texas Tech went from being a team that I wasn't even sure if I was going to have them in my top 25 to currently being a top 10 team. Now, obviously, they're going to need these court cases to all be able to hold up, because if not, man, they've got the most to lose out of all these teams right now. That might be LSU having a little bit of issue there, but my goodness gracious, this is going to be huge for them. This was also, in my opinion, a huge move. Jordan Pope, he's heading on over to Texas A&M. Now, with buckyball, you do have to have a little bit of concern because last year, this was very much a whole is greater than the sum of its parts sort of team, and we've noticed that whenever Bucky McMillan has been coaching at the college ranks. Now, he was a high school coach not too long ago, so he probably had to handle some egos because they bring in PJ Haggerty, who is a 19-plus point per game scorer at multiple different stops. You're bringing a guy in Jordan Popu, and he did a nice job playing his role over at Texas, double-figure scorer, and so he's been a solid three-point shooter, and they should have Mackenzie Mbakbo back this season. Tyson Archie, he's going to be a rock-solid player as well. I do like the overall talent here for Texas A&M. Again, I still have a little bit concerned because PJ Haggerty is a very ball-reliant guy, but still, this is a Texas A&M team that's really building up a backcourt, and a team that out there in an SEC full of just loaded teams. I'm not sure what we can expect out of them. I'm certainly not going to have them in my top 4 or my top 5 quite yet, but boy, in this SEC, it is going to be so locked and loaded. I mean, if Texas A&M is like your, shall I say, and air quotes, your slightly above average team or average team, yeah, you're really looking at something there. And then Jamarcus Lawrence, he's right now looking at a bunch of schools. He's one of those guys that's involved in the California case, so we'll see what happens there. And you did see Creighton get a nice addition as well, as they are going to be bringing back Fred King, who he was always in the shadow of Ryan Kalkbrenner, could never really get out there on the court as a result when he was over at Creighton. Last year when he was at Murray State, he was able to have himself a really nice season as he was able to put in there for the team a little bit over a block per contest, 13 points, 8.5 rebounds per game, so I really like his game. And for Creighton, we're going to talk about this a little bit more on the flip side with one of our good buddies in Paul Fritschner. I really think that Alan Huss has a good chance to be able to hit the ground running. I feel like the entire offseason that we've been seeing for the Big East has been amazing, and for Creighton, this just gives them another weapon. Jackson McAndrew is back from a season ago. You've got Oswin, can never say the last name, but he's back. Brody Robinson is another one of those fifth-year guys that they picked up, so they're going to need these court cases to hold up, but really with Creighton, I think that we're looking at something good for them. And then with regards to that court case in Ohio, the Ohio Court of Appeals granted the NCAA's motion to stay the injunction in the Borovichinen eligibility case. So right now the injunction is now on hold while the NCAA's appeal is resolved. Right now, pretty much the lay of the land is the fact that the Colorado judge in Sweeney, he did award a extra year of eligibility to all these fifth-year guys as long as they entered in the transfer portal early. Right now, that's the California case with Donovan Denton Company. They're trying to say, hey, even if you didn't enter into the transfer portal early, you're going to be all good to go. So Jackson Kaler and all those guys are right now stuck in limbo, and we've got ourselves a big giant ball of wax because this is the first court case that the NCAA has won since, I would say, dinosaurs roamed the earth. So, hey, congratulations to the NCAA there. It causes for an even bigger ball of wax. It causes for even more question mark, and we're going to do our best on this podcast to be able to keep things straight. Coming up next, we're going to talk to a man that is boots on the ground out there in the great state of Ohio, Paul Fritschner. He's been taking a look at these court cases because they directly involve Cincinnati and Xavier out there in his neck of the woods. We'll react to what we saw in terms of news on Monday in college basketball, all the changes that we are seeing with these teams, and just get his thoughts on a few teams that he's bullish/bearish on. That's up next right here on Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Peterson, now a part of the Beats Family Podcast. Side edge this college basketball season? Well, VSiN experts use CBB Analytics, the most comprehensive college basketball analytics platform in the world. See injury impact, on and off data, clutch time performance metrics, first versus second half splits, and so much more. Utilize the promo code of VSiN, that is VSIN, to get $30 off and find your betting edge over at cbbanalytics.com. That is cbbanalytics, all one word.com. For anyone that is new to VSiN, well, I wish you a friendly hello. This is an attention to anyone that is new to VSiN because you're able to get some free stuff with our daily newsletter. It's a great way to catch up on everything that's happening in the sports betting world. It's delivered straight to your inbox every single morning. VSiN's newsletter offers picks, data, strategies for the day's betting menu, and so much more. Sign up for free today over at VSiN.com/newsletter. That's VSIN.com/newsletter, and start receiving your free newsletter tomorrow morning. That is VSIN.com/newsletter. Stay ahead of the game and bet smarter with VSiN. We're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by this man, as we've got Paul Fritschner aboard. He's doing such an amazing job looking at this great game of college basketball. He's based out there in the lovely city of Cincinnati, where I know he's doing a lot of different things. He does his own podcast, the Rebound Rundown Podcast. That's weekly here in the offseason. Gets cranked up even more during the regular season. He's doing some great work over at the Cincinnati Crown as well, where he's taking a look at the entire landscape of Cincinnati and Xavier athletics. I know he's done some work for the Big East Digital Network. You're able to catch his play-by-play work over on CBS Sports and so many others during the season as well. Follow him on the old Twitter /X at his first and last name, Paul Fritschner, and that last name is spelled Fritschner altogether. And Paul, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
Greg, great to talk to you. How are we doing tonight?
I'm doing great, and I'm doing much better because we've got a lot to talk about in college basketball. Typically, at mid-August, it's way too early top 25s, rehashing a whole bunch of topics. There's nothing to rehash right now because right now the rosters are changing like crazy. And just what have you made out of this, like we're going to call it last month or so of college basketball, because this is unlike any August that we've ever seen in the sport.
Well, and just a couple hours ago, before I even joined this show, there was a decision from the Court of Appeals here in Cincinnati, where I'm based out of right now. And the Court of Appeals, it was a win for the NCAA. The players that are part of the lawsuit in Ohio, their case is being held up by the federal case in Colorado. If the federal case gets overturned, if there's a stay granted in that case, then these players, you look at Philip Borovicin and MJ Collins, we talked all about them the last time I was on the show about a month ago, Greg. All of a sudden, you're talking about all these players that were part of the Ohio case, Javon Bennett, who just committed to Gonzaga. You're talking about these players potentially being ineligible for the season and all of this being overturned. It is a mess right now. You look at Xavier, they started class today. There are schools all over the country starting class either today or next week, whenever, and they don't know if they're going to be on the team or not.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely wild right now because we're trying to do our way too early top 25s, what have you, and if you don't have Florida in your top 5, I really don't know what to tell you there, but I mean, it's just such a messy situation because even the teams like you were talking about with Borovicin and returning to Xavier, even with MJ Collins staying within the system, we just don't know what we're getting out of so many of these teams right now.
It's going to be opening night, and we're still going to be solidifying what we want to think about a lot of these teams going into the season, because I guarantee you, maybe opening night is dramatic, right? But it could still be after practice starts when some of these teams are truly finalized. I mean, look at LSU. They're still riding on the wave of 4 official players on their roster right now.
Hey, it's up to 5. They got Sky Clark.
That's right. That is true. But isn't Sky Clark waiting on I could be wrong on that. Isn't he waiting on a judge's opinion right now?
Oh, yes, he is. So they can go back to 4. We're going to give them credit for 5 right now, but they could go back to 4. And I think is so interesting as well, because for LSU, this is make or break for them, because they obviously should have more than 5 guys when it's all said and done with the international guys. There should be a few of them that are going to be able to get waved through and everything like that, but they're a team that they've got so much to gain/lose, because we just mentioned it with Sky Clark, and you know that they are trying to sign some of these guys because they have some of the most NIL of anyone available. They've certainly got the most roster spots of any team available as well, and if everything gets overturned, they're up a creek without a rowing utensil.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of teams are right now. I think that's why you've seen some coaches say, look, we're not going to take any of these players in general because we don't want to be stuck with it. We don't want to be, trying to wave our hands come September, October when the season's about to start. You get into these exhibitions and all of a sudden, I think Cincinnati, at least right now, Cincinnati affected more than a lot of teams just because of how talented of a player MJ Collins is. But there are talented players all over the country, part of this 5th-year returning class, if they get granted that. And it's not, I know this is a college basketball podcast. It's not just college basketball either. It's NCAA wide. It is all college athletes. It's baseball, it's soccer, it's football, it's anybody going back to school. The entire college athletics landscape is being kind of overturned right now. That's why it's just so interesting to look at.
Yep, it certainly is. As Paul Fritschner, he does such great work with the Rebound Rundown podcast. He is joining me right here on Coast to Coast Hoops, and we just have a big giant ball of wax to take a look at in general. And how about if we take a look at the team that I think would be affected the most? Like Cincinnati, no doubt about it. They're certainly in the top 5. Xavier, they're probably a top 5, top 10 team in terms of most of gain/lose. But Texas Tech, they signed Darian Williams, which I thought that was massive for them. They bring in JaMychal Stillwell. If those two guys aren't eligible, Texas Tech goes from a team that I was feeling really bullish about. I thought that they were going to be back in my top 10 way too early, top 25, and all of a sudden, lots of question marks, in my opinion, pop up for them.
I fully agree. And that's why I say you look at some of these articles that are being written right now about the 5-5 stuff. And I think CBS just published one today. Would you or would you not, if you were in the coach's shoes, take a player in this 5-5 situation? And when you're now look, if it works out, for Texas Tech, if it works out for LSU, if it works out for some of these schools, great. And I think if you're a coach, you're probably banking on that. But man, to your point, if those two guys aren't eligible at Texas Tech, it dramatically changes the outlook of their season to a point where you're saying to yourself, well, what is this team without them? Now, obviously, Texas Tech is a very talented team, but those are two very prominent names that add to an already pretty good Texas Tech team going into the season.
Yep, no question about it. And there's a lot of Big 12 teams, it feels like, that have quite a bit riding on this. Heck, even Florida. I know that Denzel Aberdeen, he's a guy that's riding on this a little bit as well. No doubt about it, Florida's going to be just fine if they don't have him, but still a lot to be taking a look at on that front. And when it's all said and done, I know that you're not a legal expert. I went to college for radio, TV, film because I didn't want to go through things like calculus, law school classes, or anything like that. I just wanted to talk into a microphone and watch sports. So I took the lazy man's way out myself as well. But that said, do you think that we are going to be seeing these guys being out there on the court? Because I still think, even with what we saw on Monday, I still think that the NCAA is the Washington Generals of the court system, and I think that these guys are all going to be fine. But it's very clear that the NCAA is doing more than just putting out there a sort of save face sort of effort. They really don't want these guys to play.
They're doubling down, tripling down on trying to make sure that these players do not play this season. This is, like I said the last time I was on, this is their flag in the sand moment for the NCAA. This is the case that they are really, truly doing what they can to fight against. And I tend to think, Greg, that when all the dust settles, I just think it's way too much at this point to keep these players out. It feels like the players have committed. I'm sure money has, I don't want to say this because I don't know it for a fact, but I'm sure money has changed hands somewhere for players that are back in school and, have signed NIL deals and are planning to be part of the team. I'm sure if it hasn't changed hands yet, it will soon. If the agents are smart, they're probably front loading the money so that the players get paid before the season starts in case any of this does get overturned. So then you have the schools on the other side that know that that's not the smartest way to do it from their perspective. I mean, it just really feels like eventually they're probably going to be able to play. But if you had asked me this question, if we had done this interview last night, I probably would have had a different answer for you just because I can't remember the last time the NCAA won in court before today.
I always make the joke that they're the Washington Generals of the court system. Like, you always just expect them to go out there and take a big giant L, and they actually pulled off something on Monday. So they might be a little bit of a changing of the guard over there, as Paul Fritschner, who does such great work taking a look at this amazing game of college basketball, is joining me right here on Coast to Coast Hoops. And I think that with these fifth-year guys as well, if they are able to play, which, again, I still think when it's all said and done, Gonzaga is going to be able to have Javon Bennett out there. I think that MJ Collins goes to Cincinnati, but these teams that are signing these fifth-year guys, I still do have a question mark with chemistry. I know that talent is reigning a little bit more supreme in college basketball than ever before, and maybe chemistry isn't quite as important, but still, when it comes to roster building, we used to think that like late June, early July was late. Now we're going to have these guys signing in August. We might see these guys signing in September. Heck, games might be played, and they might still be trying to latch on to teams, and you have to wonder how that's going to affect the dynamic of the team, because I still go back to the Baylor case of a season ago, James Nanji, and that completely destroyed them.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why I say I think, hyper local to me. You look at Philip Borovicin and MJ Collins. Those are two guys. Those are outliers to this because they weren't transferring necessarily. I know MJ Collins was at Utah State, but he played for Jared Calhoun. He's sort of part of that system, and the entire team is transfers anyway. Philip Borovicin was part of the team last year. He has remained around the team throughout the summer. He's still sort of acclimated to the culture and to what Xavier's trying to do. It wouldn't be total outliers, and I'm sure that goes for some other players around the country, but for not for everybody. There's no doubt about it, not for everybody. And that's where you are taking a risk at this point with the culture that you've built throughout the summer. I mean, you have 8 weeks of grinding that you're doing and warm days and early mornings or whatever it is, and you're trying to build team chemistry, and then all of a sudden you're just going to get a transfer out of nowhere who's going to come in and expect big minutes. It just seems like a big risk.
Yep, it really does. When you're trying to bring in these guys this late in the process, I always do have to give them just a little bit of a downgrade myself, as Paul Fritschner, who does such great work over at the Rebound Rundown Podcast, joining me right here on Coast to Coast Hoops. And Paul, we have seen a month, my friend. Oh my goodness, you've got so much happening over there because your main two teams in Cincinnati and Xavier, they've been very much at the front lines of everything that we're seeing right now. Heck, even teams that I know you've got a little bit of, shall we say, ties to the Missouri Valley Conference. I know that we were seeing Frederick King trying to sign with Creighton about 24 to 48 hours ago, so there's a lot going on there. And with everything that we've seen, is there one or two teams that you're feeling a little bit different about right now than you did even just like a week or two ago? Because the news is coming in like wildfire. Again, I think that we should be getting these fifth-year guys to still be out there on the court, but now with Monday, it throws a little bit of a monkey wrench into things.
Yeah, I think Creighton would be my answer to that. You saw Brody Robinson from Oakland commit to Creighton, Fred King potentially going back. Now, the question is, what's the health status of Osman Arunse? Creighton is a great answer there, and it was honestly the answer I was going to give because I think just with the names and what they've done here in the last little bit, Jordan Pope going to Texas A&M is pretty intriguing to me. The Aggies have done really well in my mind in the portal and in this offseason and what they've done. I think if it holds and Jordan Pope is eligible to go to Texas A&M, that's potentially another good ad for the Aggies and Bucky McMillan. So, yeah, those are a couple of teams, one out of the Big East, one out of the SEC, a couple of teams I'm keeping an eye on.
And I'm so glad that you did bring up Creighton as well, because I want to get your expectations for Alan Huss, because he's technically a first-year coach at his respective place. We know what he was able to do over at High Point. He spent a year in the system as the pretty much head coach in waiting over at Creighton. What are your thoughts there? Because I know that for a lot of coaches, sometimes they need a year or two to find their bearings, but I think this is a really good situation, and I think that Alan Huss, if he does get all of his guys, he has a chance to do something really special in year number one that we don't find out of a lot of first-year coaches.
Yeah, I have very high expectations for Creighton and Alan Huss. I mean, you look at what he did at High Point. He got to sit on the bench under Greg McDermott this past year, and I think he's going to fit right in. I think it'll be seamless. I think Alan Huss is a good coach who's shown it before. He's been a head coach. He's been a high-level assistant coach. I think he's proven. You're not just getting somebody off the street that doesn't know what he's doing here, Greg. You're getting somebody who has really coached at a high level, and I'm excited to see what he can do at Creighton this year with the team that he's put together.
Yep, I'm right there with you. And we saw what High Point was able to do in the NCAA tournament last year. He got them there 2 seasons ago. He was able to lay the groundwork there. And I know that you, Paul, are laying the groundwork for so much great college basketball coverage. You're doing a great job with the Rebound Rundown podcast. You do a lot of play-by-play work when it comes to the season in general. And I know you've done some work over at the Field of 68 when it comes to some of their broadcasts as well. I know that they just announced the 24 hours of college basketball, so they might need you on that one because, man, there's going to be a lot of tired bodies there. But let the good people at home know it's all tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I'll get the call this year or what their schedule is or how their broadcasts are set up, but if they do give me the call, I'll be ready to go. You can follow me at Paul Fritschner, and then also, like I said, make sure you check out the podcast, the Rebound Rundown. It's something I'm doing weekly in the off season, daily during the season, and gives you everything you need to know. So, yeah, always appreciate you having me on, Greg, and look forward to talking to you next time.
Absolutely. And I know that if they gave Paul a call for doing a random college basketball game in Hawaii, he'd be on that first plane over to Hawaii. He'd be doing a great job. And hey, if they give him the call at midnight to do like a game out there in the Carolinas, what have you, he's a man that will get the job done. We always appreciate Paul on this podcast. Big thanks to him for joining me on Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. And if you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Coast to Coast Hoops, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one or two ways we'll fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at @GUnit_D1. Keep in mind, letters the name does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. And we certainly have a lot that is going on right now in this fine sport. I'm going to be giving you guys just everything that we're seeing day in and day out. Additionally, we have to continue on with the conference previews. So I'm going to look to do the Patriot League within the next few days. And it's my job to make this the most profitable college basketball season of all time. So I'll be chugging along every single day like I have for over 2,400 straight days. Appreciate tuning in today, and I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you.